Boston, the winningest sports city this century. Each championship deriving from a plan. Join us as we discuss the next Boston Banner Blueprint with your hosts, Josh Finkel, Nick Walsh, and Nate Philbrook.
What's up, everybody? Boston Banner Blueprint. We're back at it again today with some more Sox talk. A little bit, not breaking news, but there's some notable things that we should talk about. But first, Nate, obviously take it away.
Yeah, of course, we always want everybody to know exactly where to find us. And if you're not watching on YouTube, if you are, go ahead and just follow the links down below. All of our handles there in the ticker. But if you are not, and you're just listening to us on our various platforms, of course, it is Twitter/X at Boston Banner BP. Instagram and Facebook is Boston Banner Blueprint, and Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, Boston Banner Blueprint. Go like, subscribe, follow, all the things. Help this podcast continue to grow. Back to you, Fink.
Yeah, so we're going to dive right into it, I think. Nick, let's talk Sox. Take it away, kid.
Okay, so
I guess. You're an old man, yeah. We're going to call you the old man.
He's the oldest one in the group.
Yeah, old man Nick, take it away.
Not even 30 yet. I'm the oldest. Oh, God dang it. But there's two prevalent articles that came out this past week by two different writers. The one I want to touch on first came out in The Athletic a few days ago with Ken Rosenthal. I just want to read one portion of it. It was a pretty long article where I think Ken spoke for a lot of Red Sox fans that are upset about this team not spending, me being one of them. Earlier in the offseason, President and CEO Sam Kennedy had mentioned that their goal this offseason was to construct a team that could win 90 to 95 games and compete for the AL East. And in the middle of this article, Ken writes, 90 to 95 wins, ? As presently constituted, the Red Sox look more like an 85-win club that could end up with 88 and sneak into the postseason. In a weekend American League, why do they keep operating like an AL Central wildcard hopeful? They're not better than the New York Yankees, and probably not even better than the Baltimore Orioles. They just want to make the playoffs at the cheapest possible price. And that last line, they just want to make the playoffs at the cheapest possible price. How can you disagree with that right now? The way, like 2 weeks ago when we were on here, we talked about the moves that we like so far. Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler. They still really haven't spent that much money. If I had the math right, I think the soon-to-be Las Vegas Athletics have spent more than you. And that's pretty embarrassing. Like, for a team that has the resources and the money as the Boston Red Sox, they're not acting like it.
What a depressing way to start the show, Nick. Thanks.
Hey, I'm the pessimistic one in the group. Like, if you always think something's wrong, when you can't be disappointed. You can only be proven surprised.
No, but I think you're right that they haven't necessarily spent any money in the sense of adding to payroll all that much. Obviously, they gave Buehler $20+ million deal, which is basically the qualifying offer. We were all pretty excited about that last week. I think there seems to be some momentum. They had a pretty clear arbitration process with Crochet, and there's some momentum building towards a potential extension there. Obviously, that's going to take some money. Hopefully it's relatively low in terms of payroll in the immediate future. But yeah, I mean, they've spent in the way of prospects, which obviously they were rich at coming into the offseason. But in the sense of spending John Henry's beloved dollar, they haven't really done much in the way of spending that to improve the current roster.
Think?
I think to answer your question, you said it's probably a rhetorical question, but you said, how can you disagree with that last statement? You can't really, I don't think. The one thing I would argue is that we just talked about on our Pats podcast that you've probably listened to by now if you're watching this one, but we talked about a pipeline of coaches. You always want sustainability. Like, always know that if someone leaves, someone gets hurt, there's a quality person there to come up behind them. And I think that's kind of what we have sacrificed with not spending money. Now we have probably the best farm in baseball. We have a deep treasure chest of talented bats coming up. So I think we have paid, like Nate said, with how deep we are in the prospect like pool. Obviously, you do want to spend money, but John Henry said it. He's not comfortable giving pitchers a ton of money. So in this year's class was loaded with front end arms. They didn't want to spend that money. They made the trade for Crochet, which appeased a lot of us. And other than that, I don't know, besides like extending Mookie, we can get back into that, or Xander. I don't know, Nate.
Yeah, and to your point, the Crochet appeased us for a very short window of time. I don't know about you, but like the Crochet is already kind of old news at this point. Like, yeah, we want to see him put on the jersey at Fenway Fest. We want to see all those fun things, but like we still want to see the Red Sox go out and be the Red Sox and build a true championship contender. So that's all I wanted to say there. Go ahead with the rest of your point.
And I think we've seen them where sometimes free agency hasn't gone their way. They've just thrown money to guys to give them money. We saw it with like Hanley Ramirez and Pablo Sandoval. Like they get nervous. They just kind of throw money. And I think they're trying to be careful. Obviously, they haven't done absolutely anything. I don't think they've given out more than a 2-year deal, which was to Giolito in the last 3 years. And that's not even like a traditional 2-year deal. It had an opt-in. He only took it because he got hurt. So yeah, they're not spending money, but you need a good farm if you want to be a successful team, especially through 162. We have that now. So now is the time to probably start spending money to fill the holes you do have. But I don't know I don't want them to just throw money to throw money. And I think they've done a good job of not doing that. Because they don't spend any money.
5 or 6 minutes of all the negative things. There has been some exciting headlines since the last time we talked Sox. Nick, I know that you were one that was on the more excited side of potential Vlad to Boston rumors. Obviously, not in the necessarily near future, as he's not a free agent until after this upcoming 2025 season. But why don't you, when you read that tweet from Bob Nightingale, which we are confident in saying that has now been deleted, right?
I went through his whole Twitter profile all the way back to December 28th. So I'm going back 3 weeks and it dropped this week and I did not see it.
Yeah, I went back 2 weeks and it wasn't there. So it's definitely gone.
It got deleted. I think he probably came across a little bit more sure than he probably should have, but he came across with some terminology and verbiage that made a lot of Red Sox fans really, really excited in terms of if they did not get any deal between this is the Blue Jays I'm talking about. If they did not get a deal with Vlad prior to spring training, he was going to free agency and he would be wearing a Red Sox uniform in 2026. So when you read that, what was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction was I saw Vlad and Red Sox in the same tweet and I nearly jumped out of my seat. And then I saw who reported it, and it's like, okay, I got to take a step back because if our listeners aren't on Twitter, for the listeners that are not on Twitter, I know a lot of our listeners are, but if you're not familiar with baseball Twitter, Bob Nightingale, it is a dark place.
Dark place.
But Bob Nightingale, I think, is one of a few writers we know of that you got to have double confirmation before you take their word as gospel. He's been wrong so many times in the past. So my initial, oh my God, was that I thought we were getting him now because my brain saw Vlad and Red Sox right next to each other. But then come back down to planet Earth here. It's like, you're still excited because of the possibility, but it's basically, how much do you trust the messenger? And I don't trust Bob Nightingale one bit.
I think my reaction, I was kind of like, that's pretty sweet. I looked at my phone twice. I was like, oh, cool. Vlad might be a Sock. Sent it to a couple buddies. I was like, Vlad's going to be a Sock. I said the same thing about Soto. So, I mean, we obviously don't know anything. But I think this hasn't, it's definitely picked up. It definitely has picked up steam this offseason with all the Soto news. They all tied in, the Dominican part of, oh, Vlad's going to come here too. Like we heard a ton about it early in the offseason. I think it's been like this for a couple of years now. I think it started when he said that when Vlad said he always wants to kill the Yankees every time he plays them, something like that. I think that's when it really was like, oh, then this guy's definitely going to be a Sox, like just as a joke thing. But should Nightingale have put that tweet out? Probably not. Definitely very, very premature. Could I see it happening? Oh yeah. I'm saying it's happening.
I mean, if we look at the contenders for Vlad, and this is free agency Vlad, assuming that it's some sort of deal with Alonso going back to the Mets that takes Steve Cohen out of the Vlad race, because obviously when Steve Cohen enters the picture, and this is the owner of the Mets for those that don't know, but anytime that he enters the picture and it's about money, he's in position to win that deal, at least offer the highest amount of dollars. And so, but to your point, he said that he would never sign with the Yankees. And so that essentially eliminates them. As we know, it takes two to tango. And even if the Yankees were going to offer a similar sort of deal, how can you kind of retract that statement from a year or two ago? Obviously he's a young player, so probably things come out of his mouth that he doesn't intend, but
money
how
talks.
do you retract that comment? And then, but that's what I'm saying is I feel like the Yankees would have to go above and beyond where they already have a $300 million payroll or damn close to it to continue to roll out these huge deals. And so if anything, it puts the Red Sox in a position we don't think that the Dodgers can afford them, but go ahead, Fink.
I think one thing, I don't know if I'm going to say we probably can agree on this, is that he's not going to be a Blue Jay come 2026. That's one thing I don't, maybe you guys think differently. I don't see him being a Blue Jay. I think that window was open for a little bit. It's closed. They're not getting better. Their biggest signing in the last couple of years is Hoffman, which just happened.
See, I don't. If it gets through spring training, no, I don't think he's going to be a Blue Jay. Like if he gets to free agency, I don't see him going back. But like we talked about on our last Red Sox episode about a potential Crochet extension, when you get down to spring training and you're in the sunshine and you're relaxed and the pressure of the offseason is gone, Blue Jays come and throw that money in front of you like they wanted to throw in front of Juan Soto.
Didn't they already offer him a pretty big deal?
They offered him $350 and he declined. The rumor is that they're about $100 million apart. He's looking for about $450. Now, since that rumor has come out, they have said that they would likely meet Vlad's asking price, the Blue Jays that I'm talking about here. And so that's where my concern is, and I'm not so sure-footed that he's not going to be a Blue Jay, because that's really their last-ditch effort. I mean, they tried to throw money at Ohtani. They tried to throw money at Soto. None of them took it. And if they can't get their own guy that has been there, been in the culture, been the face of the franchise, basically of Canadian baseball at this point, like, who can they sign? And so why wouldn't they go out and sign him to basically whatever he wants, And so that's my biggest concern. I think the biggest threat to the Red Sox signing Vlad 2026 is the Blue Jays in 2025.
I think he'll get $450 anywhere. I think it's just going to come down to where he wants to play, obviously.
Oh, if he hits the open market, I think that number starts with a 5 and it might push a 6.
For a first baseman?
Yeah, no way. I think I could see a 5.
I could see a 5. It's not going to.
If
he hits the open market,
you did just see what Soto got, and like 700.
Soto got 8. Yeah, Soto got 8. Like, I could see him getting 6. If he gets to the open market, I could see a team. It takes one stupid owner, and I would hope that stupid owner is John Henry.
Yeah, me too. I would. Like you guys say it every episode. It's not our money.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true, and I do stand by that take.
Yeah, it's. I think if you get to a bidding war and he's going to be the hot name next year, he's not Juan Soto. Like, I want to put that out there, but he would be the Juan Soto of the 2026 offseason. He would be that white whale that everyone's going for. So that's why I'm saying where there's going to be a contract thrown out there if he gets free agency that starts over 6.
I hope so. I hope Tony clips this, PT, go ahead and clip this, and then 2026 offseason, we'll revisit it. I don't know if the way that the league is looking at first basemen right now. I mean, look at what the Red Sox have received in terms of correspondence for Casas. I mean, Casas is a younger left-handed power bat that, I mean, they're scoffing at the idea of bringing Casas in, and we can talk in a little bit about why the Red Sox hate Casas so much. I don't really understand that, but you know, the way that people are talking about first base.
Yes, Nick's first finger.
I can't imagine it coming with a 6. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, you brought up Casas and why the Red Sox hate him. I think this exact topic might pour some insight into that thought process. Like all of a sudden, this offseason becomes a lot more clearer of why they're trying to trade Casas, why they're hesitant on bringing in Alex Bregman on a big contract. If they have their eyes set on Vlad Guerrero, it makes sense. Like, because I don't know why they're trying. I don't know why they're trying to trade their top first base prospect who has 30 to 40 home run power under team control for the next 4 or 5 years. If they don't have Vlad Guerrero in their crosshairs.
I think it does make sense on the part of it's Vlad Guerrero versus Tristan Casas. You'd rather probably have Vlad. Biggest Casas, like you know what, Ryder. There probably is. I love Casas. But I think they've talked about they need a right-handed bat. They want to balance the lineup. Vlad does that in a number of ways. You have all these other lefties coming up that hit for power, all this stuff that Casas does as well. That's the only thing I could see that makes sense about why the Sox hate Casas. Anything else, I don't get it at all. But in the Vlad Guerrero sense, yeah, it makes complete sense in my head.
Well, before you go too far down the balancing the lineup thought train, I think that it's probably worth noting that later on in this episode, we have a couple of galaxy brain type trade proposals that I've come up with that we're going to run by you all, see what you all think, and then we can put it on as a poll out on our socials and see what our BBB gang, what they think too. So before we go too far down the balancing the lineup thought process.
I also want to be, when we get into that, I want to bring up a proposal that we talked about that was on Twitter. I want to see your guys' reactions on the pod about that one. You probably know what I'm talking about, but I think you know.
That's what I call A+ foreshadowing for our listeners to keep them engaged for the rest of the episode.
Well, we certainly know it's not because they're looking at you, Nick.
Yeah, we're just trying to give them the blueprint.
The blueprint of the episode. Hey, we don't. Well, we do write the content, I guess, but I was going to say it just writes itself, basically.
Yeah.
So one of the things that came out of Fenway Fest that just happened this past week was a rather small announcement, but still makes waves in Red Sox Nation, as happens to be a color of a certain uniform the Red Sox are going to be wearing this year. And so the new City Connects are going to be, I think it's just been said, green, right? We don't know. Kind of
green Sox, baby. The green Sox.
Anything like that. But as you can see by our logo and as Nick's background, we happen to like green here on the Boston Vader Blueprint podcast. So what do you guys think of the new City Connect jerseys being green?
I love it personally. I think I don't know if I said it on our first Sox pod or like the one we did that we didn't throw live, but I was calling for the greens. I love the greens. They're awesome. When they used to wear the greens on St. Patrick's Day in spring training, like that was must-see TV. I love the City Connects they had, the baby blue and the yellow. I mean, it's classic. It's classic now, but green jerseys, man.
They're keeping the yellow.
Well, yeah. Well, no, yeah. I know that. I know they're not completely getting rid of them, but as like a lot of teams, see, I'm not the biggest fan of City Connects because I think they don't do a great job on a lot of them. Like, I think some of them are very good. There's always like a handful that are very good that are done well. I think some, they're not great. So I'm glad they didn't screw, like, obviously we haven't seen it yet, but the thought that it's going to be green is a great thought. And I'm very happy that it's green.
And my thought on baseball jerseys is my same thought on all the new NBA jerseys that come out each year. Like there are certain franchises and organizations that have such classic jerseys that don't mess with. Like the Celtics have the traditional white and the traditional green, and they always have a new alternate each year. And it's like, stop. Like the Yankees pinstripes, that's iconic. I hate to say it, but it is. Like, I know we're right. So
Nick just hates baseball making money. What does this take? Come on.
My point being is we don't need new City Connects every single year. But if we are going to get it, this is me bringing it back to being positive. I like the green. Like,
I feel like we're one of the few teams that hasn't got. I feel like we're one of the few teams that hasn't got one every year though. Like we've had the yellow ones for a while. Like a lot of teams, I feel like they get one or like a new one or every maybe 2 years. But us, we've stuck with it. So it is kind of, I mean, they're keeping it on, so I'm happy for that. But it is kind of time for a change. But what do you want them to play naked out there?
No,
what, you don't like jerseys? Nick's saying no sports jerseys. Tony Clippett, no sports jerseys. He wants them playing naked.
I will say the fact that they're getting rid of the blue road alternates is a plus because those were always my least favorite out of them. So if
those reminded me of like a batting practice jersey that you would wear pregame to hit in the cage.
But like you said,
I hated those.
Those green ones that always came out on St. Paddy's Day during spring training. And I think there was a game I think it was the 2008 game where ironically, the defending champions Boston Celtics in 2008 bring the Larry O.B. out to Fenway Park. The Sox wore the green unis.
Maybe I think that's why.
Maybe we get it this year.
That's definitely what's happening.
Plugging in our Celtics listeners.
Yeah, that's definitely happening.
So, City Connects aside, I think that there's some other movement roster-wise since we last talked Red Sox. We had Garrett Crochet, Tanner Houck, amongst others, agree to arbitration deals to avoid arbitration. One that did not, particularly a notable one in Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran, so those that don't know, the player submits their arbitration number, the team submits their arbitration number. If they cannot agree, they then go to a third-party arbiter to discuss who and what the deal ultimately wants to look like. Jarren Duran submitted at $3.5 million. The Red Sox submitted at $4 million. For a guy that finished top 10 in MVP voting, Jarren Duran, I don't think that it is wise for the Red Sox to be bickering over $500,000 when the owners are worth $5 billion, and that the payroll is currently sitting at 14th in the major leagues. And so when we're talking about spending money and you have a guy that is a homegrown talent like Jarren Duran, and this is really one of the first opportunities you're getting after a superstar-esque year to really show your appreciation for one of your clubhouse leaders going into 2025, and you're going to throw $500,000 in his face and basically say, too bad, tough luck. I don't think that's a necessarily good look, but what do you guys think?
Nick, take it.
I want to go first on this one because I'm actually going to be the good news optimistic one in this conversation compared to the jerseys. I absolutely 100% agree in the sense that it's not smart to bicker over $500,000 for one of your best positional players. That being said, I'm not going to get worried until they actually go to a hearing. A deal can be still agreed upon up until 30 seconds before they go behind those closed doors. So I'm not hitting full panic mode yet on them for this. I think a deal, they're so close in their bids to one another that I don't think either side wants to go to a hearing, and I don't think either side will. And for any of our Bruins listeners out there, we know how arbitration can soil any good standing in terms of future contract talks with the Jeremy Swayman fiasco the last 2 years. And the positive news is a deal did end up getting done in that. in the long run. But I don't think. My point being is I'm not going to get worried about Jarren Duran and the Red Sox being $500,000 apart without a deal until they go to a hearing, which I think is towards the end of the month, into February. I don't know if they've set an exact date, but it's usually around end of January, beginning of February. They want them all done before spring training. So until that day comes and we know they went to a hearing, I'm not going to be worried and bash them yet. The time will come if they do go to a hearing that, yes, I will bash them, but just not today.
Yeah, I'm with Nick. I'm not worried, and I haven't really thought about it. Like I've seen the stuff on Twitter. I don't really care too much. It's obviously not a great look. Like I won't say I don't care about that sense. Like yeah, it's $500,000. He's probably your best player. Just pay him the money. But other than that, I'm not giving too much thought into it. Too many other things to think about.
There
Like
really are. And yeah, to your point, I mean, can I see that it's not necessarily a cheap move by the Red Sox because of the positional depth at the organization? They have Willie Abreu, they have Ceddanne Rafaela, they have Roman Anthony coming up. Christian Campbell's been proven in the outfield, so they have positional depth there already.
Yoshida, Yoshida too. You forgot him.
Yeah, Masataka Yoshida, which actually Alex Cora did say at Fenway Fest that he's preparing to play in the outfield this year, and that a large reason why he did not play in the outfield last year was due to the shoulder that he basically had a reconstruction surgery on or something like that this off season. But they have a lot of positional depth there, and so that then leads to believe the Red Sox like, oh well, we have options, and so we can leverage those options to save a buck. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, as we just talked about, but I think that that's playing my own devil's advocate, that could be a reason as to what they're thinking. So going from one position group to a similar but yet different position group there was an Alex Spear article that came out earlier today talking about how the Red Sox are willing and will likely present extension offers to the three major prospects in the organization: Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, and top MLB prospect Roman Anthony. I know that when I saw this come up, that it excited me. The Jackson Churio deal out in Milwaukee, an 8-year deal for a guy that had not yet even made his MLB debut, locks him in at a really relatively low price given their forecasted production. And this is a guy that, you really can rally around, or all three of those guys are really that you can build a strong young core around. Might as well lock them in while you can. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it excites me. I mean, they've done it with Rafael. They did it with Bayo. The Braves do it all the time. It's the best time to do it. If you really believe in these guys, take a leap of faith, extend them at a fraction of the price of what they'd be if they hit the open market after they do what we expect them to do. Extend them now. You're going to save a bunch of money. You're obviously the low budget Red Sox, and so you don't want to spend money. So I don't see why now isn't the perfect time. You're going to get these, like Churio got 8 for 88, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like a
Correct.
crazy deal. And he had a really good rookie season, going to keep getting better. Like if that's what you think your guys are, and probably even better than that, why wouldn't you extend them? That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think you guys hit on it in terms of if you believe in the guys. I believe in Campbell. I believe in Anthony. I'm a little hesitant on Mayer because of the injuries. But if you're telling me we got to do all three compared to 0, I'm doing all three in a heartbeat because I want to lock up Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell as soon as heavenly possible. Fact being, if we would have done that a decade ago with Mookie and Xander and had this philosophy, we wouldn't be in the position that we were with those guys. So if we can do that now with Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell and Marcelo, if he's included in that, I'm all for it 100%.
Yeah, they did say that the reason they do want to do it is because of their past mistakes. But obviously, like anyone's going to say that. Like I would have said that if that was my organization. Like, oh yeah, 10 years ago we messed it up. That's not happening again. We got you guys. Like, don't worry about it. But back to you, Nick. Or Nate. Either one of the
Well, I
ends,
think
that's
you,
fine.
you do that. That's what you want from your leaders of your organization is saying, "Hey, we messed up. We acknowledge that we didn't make the right decision here, and we're doing X, Y, Z in order to fix it." And so when we're talking about going out and spending money, and I love that that's kind of become a mantra for us: is spend all the money. Go out and you lock in the young talent. When was the last time? I mean, now, granted, I know there's a couple of examples of recent memory, but when you have a guy that is homegrown talent, he comes up, he becomes a bona fide stud at the major league level. I mean, we have Xander, we have Mookie, but other than that, I mean, JBJ, you know what I'm saying? I
Raffy,
mean,
Raffy.
Devers, but that's a guy that we've already extended. And so you don't have that true superstar caliber, the guy that's going to go out and be the face of your franchise. Because as much as they want Rafi to be that, he isn't, and doesn't appear as though he has interest in being that. And so you have an opportunity here to take that leap of faith and put your money where your mouth is and invest in this young core long term. And keep in mind too that these are the prospects that for years and years since they traded Mookie that they've just absolutely shoved down our throats of wait until the next wave, wait until the next wave. You guys got to see these prospects that we're bringing up. It's like, okay, well now they're on the doorstep. Go ahead. I mean, we're putting in position for them to be able to play. We talked about that last episode. If you didn't listen to that in the first Red Sox podcast or episode 1, go back and listen to it. The link will be below. But anyway, if the opportunity for them to play is there, it's not going to get cheaper if they're the players that we think that they are. And so that's my big thing is believe in yourself. If you are a organization that prides itself on building within, which I think that they do, particularly coming out of the Chaim era, and then go ahead and put your money where your mouth is and invest in this team long term. It doesn't seem like it's rocket science here.
Definitely not rocket science, but if it makes sense, probably not going to do it.
They do not seem to adhere to Occam's razor. The most obvious answer is usually the right one. It doesn't seem as though that seems to be the case most of the time. So what do you guys, I mean, so as far as things that I wanted to cover, I know that we covered those ahead of our trade proposals that we'll get into a little yay, nay discussion here. But do you guys have anything before we move into that?
Yeah, I had one thing. They said today that out of the 3 prospects we just talked about, the one that is most likely to make the opening day roster is actually Christian Campbell. I'm not sure if you guys saw that.
I didn't see it. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it slipped past me too. So,
but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. So like that kind of goes back into the taking a leap of faith, and like if that is a guy that you want on your opening day roster, as young as he is, as like Nate, you said it perfectly. Like wait to the next wave. Like if you believe in yourself and the way you develop that much, why wouldn't you extend these guys? So I think that just ties right back into it. But other than that, I got not a lot of Sox thoughts right now.
Well, you mentioned earlier about balancing the lineup, how Vlad would do that. Campbell would do that this year because he is a right-handed bat.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he would be the one that's more likely because Mayer and Anthony, as we know, are both left-handed hitters. So I could see how that logically makes sense. And even though Roman Anthony's ranked higher on every single major league prospect pipeline list, he's actually ranked number 1 in the big leagues out of all 30 teams, which is great to see. Campbell breaking the spring training with the big league roster simply because he's right-handed and a great right-handed bat, hopefully, falls right in line with that line of thought.
So I will say, I don't care too much about having, like, if it was all righties, I would care a little bit. But we're lefty dominant. I don't care too much about it. Walker Buehler went on Section 10 a few days, I think like 2 days ago, and said he doesn't care if he sees 9 straight lefties. He thinks he pitches better to lefties. So like hearing that, it makes me like, I don't know the words I'm trying to say, but it like in my mind, I don't see too many lefties as an issue, Nate.
Yeah, and so to that point, I'm going to marry, and I think I'm going to finish this thought where you think I think it's less to do with Campbell's ability to hit from the right side, and more to do with he's a college prospect versus a high school prospect in Anthony. And so he's 2 years older than Anthony. He has that maturation process. And two, he has positional versatility that this team is really looking for. And we have heard from Craig Breslow a million times. We've heard from AC Outscore a million times. And so he can play both second base, shortstop, left field. We know that he is suitable to play all those positions, and then he can fall anywhere from really, I mean, if he comes in and he strides, he can fall anywhere from 3 to 7 in this lineup and balance it out anywhere there. But I think it has more to do with he's a more mature, a little bit more of a polished product at this given time right now than Roman Anthony is, even though he only has 19 career games at AAA. He still has those years at college that he balled out, by the way, but he still has those years at college that Roman Anthony just doesn't have due to his tender young age of 20.
Yeah.
God forbid
No
they
knock
go
on
and
Roman
win
Anthony. Yeah.
Oh,
You can't even
that
celebrate.
that is not a knock on Roman Anthony at all.
I
Obviously,
think that's a safe thing to say with the way Red Sox Twitter is. They would take that and be like, oh, these guys hate Roman Anthony, fire him into the sun. So we're just saying love Roman Anthony, but Nate's take, good take.
I appreciate that. So I know that I proposed this trade to you earlier in the week in the group chat. And so we all thought that bringing it here to the collection and sending it out to the masses was probably the right move, as we thought it was a pretty interesting take. And I'm going to send Fink's beloved Wilyer Abreu to the St. Louis Cardinals in a 1-for-3 swap. So St. Louis receives Wilyer Abreu, opens up some outfield options for the aforementioned Roman Anthony. And in return, the Red Sox receive Nolan Arenado, entering his age 34 season with 3 years of control, about $52 million left on the deal. And that right-handed bat and elite third base defense. Ryan Helsley, one of the top closers in the game last year. He's on an expiring deal. And then the St. Louis Cardinals number 22 prospect, Ryan Campos. Ryan Campos is a college prospect, left-handed hitting, catching prospect that he grades out pretty well. He was an All-American as a freshman. He won the Buster Posey National Collegiate Catcher of the Year. He was a semifinalist for that award. And then he hit 364 as a junior in college before getting drafted by the Cardinals. And so rebuilding that catching pipeline he's a defense first, but he's obviously can swing it, hitting 364 at the D1 level at Arizona State, I should add. And so that's my first trade offer for you guys. Yes, that trade is approved. Red Sox say no, Cardinals say no. Who says, what do you guys say?
I think the Cardinals say no, but that framework could work. I think the Red Sox would have to throw in maybe one more piece. I don't know if Wilyer alone gets it done personally. Because they're losing a closer, starting third baseman, and by the sounds of it, a damn good prospect. But on the Sox side of it, it makes sense, fills that right-handed gap. You pretty much replace Kyle T, a left-handed hitting catcher prospect, and you get a back end of the bullpen arm that I wouldn't say desperately need, but kind of need. I don't hate it. I hate that Willier's in it because Wilyer is my king, but I think it could work. I don't know what Nick thinks. I just do think the Sox will have to put in one more piece.
Yeah, I'm kind of lockstep with you, Fink, on that, where I think the Cardinals say no, they push for more. But I think that trade proposal could work with framed around Abreu as the major piece. We've seen a lot of smoke that that Cassis might be involved in a trade that involves Arenado, which that
would be so stupid.
Yeah, I would be totally out on that. Where the thought process, I think, was they were going to try to offload Yoshida's contract, but using Cassis to do it. Basically, the move they did with Mookie Betts trading him to the Dodgers to offload David Price's contract. It's doing that 5 years later. But if you're telling me it's Abreu instead, you bring in Arenado, you move Rafi to DH, you put him at third base, best defensive third baseman of a generation. I don't think anyone listening or whatever would disagree with that. But let's not pretend that the offensive numbers have not just dipped, but have since started to almost fall off a cliff in the last year or two with Arenado. He isn't the same hitter as he was in Colorado. That being said, you bring in a high leverage reliever that they are on record of saying they still want. So you kind of get two birds with one stone there, and the stone not being Casas. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I think that, what really intrigues me of this offer is, A, we're going to have to give up something to get something. And so that's where Willier, while I love the player and I think that he's going to be, he's already a good player. I think he's going to be a great player. And so it's okay for me to give up that player in order to open up a space for a player like Roman Anthony. I think the ceiling is much higher, as well as you then have a starting outfield of, we just talked about Christian Campbell starting the year on the Red Sox. And so you have an outfield of Duran, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Christian Campbell. That's pretty elite defensively. That also offers a lot of upside in the way of a lineup construction, as well as that then opens up second base for Vaughn Grissom, which then leaves Yoshida on the outside looking in, but we don't need to talk about that. So ideally, I would love a 3-man rotation of a Casas primarily at first base, Arenado primarily at third base, Devers primarily at DH, and then Devers can swap with Arenado for some games at third. Arenado can swap with Casas for some games at first. You can have a nice little merry-go-round here amongst those three that offers a lot better infield defense, as well as a more balanced approach when it comes to the lineup. But I can understand adding another prospect or two. I think that Willier is a very attractive option for, 5 years of team control, Gold Glove winner in his rookie year, and then what should have been a Rookie of the Year finalist. I'm going to take that straight to the bank, even though he wasn't. I think he should have been right to St. Louis in order to pick up a package of an expiring relieving deal, a prospect in which, according to MLB.com, the catching prospect that I included was the third catching prospect in their top 30, as well as they had 5 of their top 30 prospects are catchers. So that's where I think, it's an expendable position for them in their prospect ranks. And that's where that Ryan Campos came in. So just a name to keep an eye on.
Nate, before you go to your second proposal, I want to talk about the one that I saw that involved Willier for Correa. So Willier to the Twins for Carlos Correa, back to Boston, 1-for-1.
And I think that was was that by Gordo?
Yeah, that was on Play Tessie by Boston Sports Gordo, I think.
Yeah. Shout out to Gordo for helping us get this thing off the ground, as he actually helped us find this platform that we're recording on right now. So appreciate you.
Shout out Gordo, man.
Just want to make sure we're crediting the right source.
I was thinking about how to credit it while you guys were talking, and I just completely botched it. So that is on me. Meant to credit you guys, especially you, Gordo. But anyway. So what do you guys think of that?
I love it. Like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, however far removed we are now, Correa was my pick at shortstop instead of Story. So do I love the contract? No, but I also don't love Arenado's contract either. So if it's Willier for no, but what I'm just saying is I don't like either contract. So
yeah, but that's what I'm saying is the contracts aren't even comparable. It's $17 million a year for Arenado versus $30 million for Correa.
How many more years are left on Correa?
Not our money.
Correa signed a 4x4, so it's a 4-year guaranteed and then a 4 option years. With 4 vesting years, I should say. But I don't think those contracts are comparable. And I'm actually on the complete opposite side of the coin. Is I think that Correa while I like the player, I don't necessarily love the fit, because if we're talking about all these negative things when it comes to story of his injury history, of his declining defense, declining offense, yada, yada, like we already have that. It's like we already have that at home. We already have Trevor Story. And so why do we need a duplicate in Carlos Correa in the same lineup? That just opens up, in my opinion, so many more questions than it answers.
True,
I think
but also we talked about it on the first Red Sox episode about Bregman and the leadership qualities that he brings. Correa is
Yeah, but how is he gonna lead the team if he's never playing?
well, injuries are part of the game, I guess, but you got to roll the dice sometimes. And
so, but then that
I'm,
goes back
I'm,
to
I,
you saying you don't want to extend Meyer. Injuries are part of the game.
True. I'll fully admit my bias that I love Carlos Correa as a player and I wanted him 2 years ago. So if there's a way we can bring him in, I'm all for. So I completely 100% admit my bias when it comes to Carlos Correa, and I'm blinded by the player.
All right, so I think you guys probably know my answer, what I would say. Do you know it?
You're keeping Willier.
Obviously. I'm not trading Willier for Correa. I do like Correa, and definitely not as much as Nick, but I do like the player. I think it'd be an interesting fit here, I think. I think it would be good though. But no, I'm not trading Willier. Find a different way. But yeah, Nate, now your second proposal. I think it's a great time.
Yeah, and so we were talking about balancing the lineup. We were talking about setting ourselves up for next offseason. And I want to just throw this caveat out there that anybody that just listened to the last trade proposal that I just made, I think that all of these trade proposals are remedied and kind of irrelevant if they just go out and they spend money and sign Bregman. Then Bregman can slide into, I know that AC just talked about him being a Gold Glove second baseman, but let's be real. He can slide into third base and drastically improve the defense at that position. Devers can slide into the DH role. Yoshida can be shot to the moon, and then everybody's happy. Which
I'm actually not happy. Stop talking about Masataka Yoshida like this. It's ridiculous. You see on Twitter today, there's a clip of everyone getting introduced at Fenway Fest, and who got the most applauses? Whose ovation was the loudest? Yoshida's was. Yoshida. So everyone loves Yoshida. That's all I got to say.
Well, here's a little fun fact for the Boston Banner Blueprint fan out there is we're all learning Japanese so that we can have Yoshida on this podcast. So he better not get traded.
Yeah, that is
right.
Okay, so I didn't think we were going to talk about that, Nate, but producer Tony has been in contact with Yoshida's people, and it looks promising.
Yes.
But if he gets traded,
the listeners aren't going to know a damn word that he talks about. I can have no idea, but hey, we're gonna bring him on.
We're actually gonna share our Duolingo progress on our socials, so make sure you're following. Nate and I are gonna share how we're learning Japanese. Nick, he tried. He hardly knows English, so we're not really involving him in the interview, but he'll be there to watch, but he's not going to talk. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. The only thing is, if he does get traded, they said that no interview because obviously he's going to be traded. So
that's right.
But
that's right. No longer affiliate. So moving on to the second trade proposal is this is getting a little bit of a head start on the aforementioned offseason of 2026 and putting yourself in position to win the player that we just talked about. And so I am making a trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay, so I understand that this puts them in a rather precarious position, but we just talked about how the Red Sox, for whatever reason, hate Tristan Casas. And so I'm trading Tristan Casas, Cutter Crawford, and 26th ranked prospect, Jojo Igracia, a left-handed closer at single A. He was a low leverage college arm, kind of a middling prospect, kind of a flyer option for them that I included. But I guess you guys can mention, or you can kind of connect the dots here. It's for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And so he instantly slots in at first base or DH, wherever you want to put him. If you want to still slide Devers over and play the carousel with those guys, you can. But bringing Vlad in a year early, put him in position for extension talks early, and then you're immediately slotting in that elite right-handed bat into the 2025 Red Sox lineup, and you immediately put that face of the franchise right there in the middle. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I think I've said it. I think we have done 2 Red Sox podcasts, and I've said I love Tristan Casas probably 17 times. I'll say it again. I love Casas. That is a deal I would make any day of the week, anywhere on the planet. I would say yes. It makes sense for both sides. The Red Sox have been linked to Vladdy for a while. They hate Casas, like you mentioned. Cutter is kind of on the outskirts of the rotation, sort of. Not that he should be great, not great pitcher, but good pitcher. And then, I mean, I don't know much about the prospect, but it makes sense for the Blue Jays because you're losing Vladdy. You need someone to replace him. Tristan Casas, who the Red Sox hate. You get Cutter Crawford. You need some pitching. Barrios is kind of always all over the place. Gossman, he's getting older. You got that Bowden Francis guy. He's solid, but you kind of need another pitcher, and then you just add a prospect, which they don't have. They don't have a great farm, so it makes sense. I would do it. It gets my stamp of approval.
My one caveat is the extension agreed upon before the trade?
I don't believe you can ever like if they were to do that, I would think it would increase the package that would need to go back to open that window for them for negotiating before.
I think I forgot to say this. I think that's why that package would work because they're getting three players back for someone they could potentially lose for nothing. So
yeah, they're getting 4 years of Casas, 5 years of Cutter. And so you're getting a lot of team control for guys that are proven major league players for like we're talking about Bo Bichette possibly going out to market. We're talking about George Springer entering the sunset of his career. We're talking about
Dalton Varsho, awful.
Yeah,
they have all these pieces.
They have all these pieces of this quote unquote window that they've built, and it's closing quickly. And I think adding a controllable asset in Casas, a controllable asset in Cutter extends that window out a little bit for them. And so that's why I feel as though it's attractive to them.
Oh, I definitely think it's attractive to them. I just don't want to be the New York Yankees of last year, trade for Juan Soto and then get 1 year of him and he leaves for nothing. And you just gave up 4 and 5 years of control for 2 guys that you do like. Well, the Red Sox don't like Casas. We know that. I like Casas.
I would trade him.
I would trade him in a heartbeat for Vladdy with whatever package you need, but I need an extension to come with it. I'm not doing it for 1 year of Vladdy. I'm not trading for 4 years.
You in position.
I think if you
we know that his number for the Blue Jays is 450, and so who knows if he gets to Boston and he says, you know what, I really like this place, 400 will do. You don't think John Henry's going to say, yep, I'll give you that?
We are talking about the same John Henry, right? No, I don't think he would do that.
I think he would. They gave Raffy 330. Obviously, they kind of had to save face a little bit, but
yeah,
I could 100% see that happening.
This
400 million for Vladdy is nothing for the amount of jerseys he's going to sell, the amount of people he's going to get into Fenway. Talk about people don't want to go to games. I would get season tickets to go watch Vladdy and Devers hit in the same lineup, mixing with all these other prospects we have.
At the beginning of the episode, I said I would give Vladdy 600. So would I give him 400? Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely not saying that you wouldn't, but yeah, it is John Henry we are talking about.
This ownership group does not deserve the benefit of the doubt that they can get a deal done for that magnitude. They just don't deserve that luxury at this very moment. It's prove it when you do it, not when you say it. So unless an extension is coming, I don't trust that they will get one done until it's done.
Yeah, but they've already talked about they've extended the offers to Soto, right?
Yamamoto.
They made an offer on Yamamoto, and Vladdy's already talked about his interest in playing in Boston. We didn't see that with the other 2 options. And so you still need a player to accept a deal just because Soto declined the $700 million that was offered. You know, if he had accepted that offer, I feel as though the conversations you were having about John Henry right now would be drastically different.
Oh, absolutely. Because
if any of those guys accepted an offer. If anyone accepted an offer,
would have backed it up, not their words.
Yeah.
Right now, all we've gotten from this ownership group in the last few years are words. We haven't got action. So
I'm I'm not trying to carry water for the Red Sox as we talked about, spend all the money. However, they've tried to do that, just like we talked about in our Patriots podcast. They've tried to extend themselves and gone out of their comfort zone in order to sign the deals that we all are talking about. Go ahead, Fink.
So one thing I will say, we said we brought up that Patriots point kind of because they were in the market and guys just said no. The Sox offers, they've put out offers, but they're not really that competitive. Like they're a lot of money. Like the Yamamoto deal was probably the most competitive, but Soto, they came out and said it wasn't even over 600, which I think the day Soto signed, they said that they were close to 7, like all these reports, but they're putting offers out there. Obviously, we don't know all the offers, but they're not really competitive for the most part. But they have spent money. Like they signed Devers. Like it still was $330 million. They kind of had to do it, but we've seen them not do it before. So like at least they did that. So they deserve one flower.
Well, and I think that it depends on who you're listening to, because I do believe that Castillo and Sean Adams has talked about it being over 700 for Soto, at least the offer. And so it again, like you have an interested party in Vladdy for all things that are known at this current time. You have an interested party in Vladdy. And so if you bring him in, you bring him into the culture, you show him what playing in Boston is actually like. I think that would do wonders in terms of him. We give him a competitive offer that meets the threshold that he's looking for, and he signs on the dotted line. I don't think it is more complicated than that. If you have a player that wants to play in Boston and you give him the dollars that he feels as though he's worth, it should be a fairly straightforward transaction.
You can also just get David Ortiz to talk to him.
I don't know. That hasn't proven to work too well.
It's going to work. It's going to work. Trust me. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work.
You heard
on
it here
Vladdy.
first. We're trusting Fink.
No, we're
Fink
trusting
we trust.
GM. We're trusting GM David Ortiz. We're not trusting me. We're trusting David Ortiz.
And I'm just saying I don't trust this ownership group to open up the pocketbook anytime soon until they do it. Now, I hope they prove me wrong. I think
they spend
that
when
goes
it
without
makes
saying.
sense. I think they spend when it makes sense, and a lot of obviously maybe nothing has made sense to them, but I think Vladdy, it makes all the sense. He kind of, I'm not going to say he wants to be here, but everything we see is Vladdy wanted to be here, so why not extend a guy that wants to be here? Like, obviously, but everything you're saying, Nick, is 100% right. I'm just trying to be the other side of it, like, because it makes total sense in my head. I might be a little biased, but it's not like I have a Boston sports podcast or anything, so I'm definitely not biased. But
it makes sense in my head to extend them. I'm just saying, if they make that trade, I'm not going to believe an extension is there until it's signed on the dotted line. They just don't deserve the benefit of the doubt right now, and so they can earn that benefit of the doubt if they go out and do it, but not just saying and talking about it.
Can you imagine the podcast we would record if we trade for Vladdy, we're all happy, and then a year later he leaves in free agency? What would happen with Nick on here?
Well, I mean,
it would be awesome.
Yeah, so let me ask you that. Nick brought up a good kind of scenario in which, let's say that happens and it's the Juan Soto contract or the Juan Soto situation with the Yankees, but this 1 year of Vlad takes us to the World Series and shows all these young guys what it's like to win in the playoffs. I mean, I'm probably okay with that, given the fact that we're giving up Cassis, Cutter, and no offense to JoJo, but a guy that I've never heard of other than in preparation for this podcast. You know what I mean? I mean, we're giving up a couple of guys here with control for the opportunity.
No offense to JoJo, guys. JoJo, if you're listening to this, no offense to you, pal, but you're going to Toronto, JoJo. Holy shit! It's been a short run at this so far, but that's got to be the top moment in BBB history so far. That was awesome. No offense, JoJo. We love you. We appreciate you, but you got to go, pal. Gotta go, JoJo.
That is a hell of a name, you know.
Great. Hey, JoJo. JoJo, great name, but still gotta go, pal. Not gonna save you. That was awesome. See you, JoJo. No offense.
He's gonna listen to this and give the old Nick. Ouch.
He's gonna be. Oh, dang.
Boy,
Ouch.
these blueprint boys don't think I'm a part of the blueprint.
Yeah.
You
Oh
got that.
man.
You got that right. I'm shipping you out for Vladdy's wagon ass.
Yeah. Vladdy Daddy's coming over for JoJo. If
All
the
right,
Blue
boys.
Jays front office listens to this, then they might just take JoJo for him. Just JoJo for Vladdy straight up. We'll see what happens.
I'm not saying no.
I won't say no even without an extension if it's just
I'm
JoJo.
saying Joe.
My hang up
Joe.
is Cassis.
Yeah, so back to kind of bringing it back to what you were saying, Nate, saying you think it would be worth it if they make the World Series with Vladdy and then he leaves. That's where you stand?
I just a deep playoff run like that is never guaranteed. Obviously, we've seen that
Yeah,
as,
but
as Boston
if that
fans.
was the scenario, like it's the exact Yankee scenario, they make the World Series.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if that player then brings you over the hump for a deep playoff run like that and a chance to win the World Series, I don't think that those things should ever be taken for granted. And so
I agree.
that's where I'm okay. The young core that is here in Boston, it is okay to overextend yourself for chances for deep playoff runs and put yourself in position to win the World Series. So
See, I would be okay with it. It's just the one thing is if that all does happen and then he leaves, we traded Casas. So then what are you doing at first? You don't have anything behind Casas and possibly Vladdy if Vladdy did come here. You just
so they're talking.
It's back
They're
to
talking
square one where we started. It all started with Bobby Dahlbeck. He was supposed to.
Yeah, but would we though? Because they're talking about Devers at first. They're talking. I mean, we could easily bring in a Paul Goldschmidt type that the Yankees just signed for peanuts for a guy at first. That we've just talked about how the first base position is not as valuable in baseball as it once was.
That's fair. It's a good counterpoint. So yeah, I agree though. It would be worth it. Don't let Yankees fans hear this, but it probably is worth it in that sense. It just would suck trading a potential franchise first baseman for a franchise first baseman and then not have a franchise first baseman. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Because like we've waited so long to have like a game changer at first base with the bat. Like we thought it was going to be Bobby Dahlbeck. It wasn't. Hopefully he can resurrect himself in Chicago. But and then now it's Casas, and you can see it. Like it's right there. It just hasn't put it all together. Maybe it's injuries. It is injuries, but and then losing him for a year of Vladdy and to then go back through that same cycle as who is it going to be? That's my only hang up on it.
Nick, past your bedtime?
No, I'm just trying to. I've always been in the camp that you don't trade a championship for anything. But this is not it. This is losing a championship. If we're going with the Yankees example, we're using the exact same Yankee situation of losing the World Series. If the situation was we won the World Series, sign me up. I would do that in a heartbeat. I would sell my soul for 1 year.
He wouldn't leave if they win the World Series.
But we're just playing the scenario out.
No, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Like, I would not give that up for anything. But just to get there and lose, I'm on the fence on that. I can't give you an exact yes or no. Like, I see all the positives in the world that you're seeing with getting the young guys playoff exposure and learning how to be on a competitive team and get those reps in October. But to lose 4 years of Casas, lose a World Series, and then in the end lose Vlad Guerrero in free agency all in one calendar year, that's 3 gut punches to a franchise, to a fan base that has been taking its lumps for the last 5 years. So I don't know if I can say I would do that, but I can see the positives on the other end of the spectrum as well.
You could think of it as this: it's better than having Casas and not even making the playoffs.
That's right. That's right.
Because we're pretty much begging for 2 things: spend all the money. Also, JoJo's got to go, but then make the playoffs. Like we really want to make the playoffs, and obviously they're not going to spend money. So I don't know. We could come up with all the right answers in our head, and they're still going to do nothing. So
So moving into final thoughts, I'm gonna throw it to you, Nick. What's your final thought on our second crack at Red Sox talk here in the Blueprint off season? How are you feeling?
I am feeling cautiously optimistic, even though if I came across as pessimistic this whole episode. There is still a month to go between now and pitchers and catchers. There's still some names out there that get me to perk my ears up a little bit and would.
Yeah, I thought that was going in a different direction too, Nick.
Did not think you were going that way. Did
I
not
thought
think
it was
that's
going a
what-
different direction there.
All
I
right,
was about,
all right.
whoa.
Tony's gonna have his hands full with this
We're
episode.
gonna have to not just throw the E for expletive. It's gonna go into the X-rated video.
Holy
here.
moly!
It's gone from the Boston Streakers to Nick getting all hot and bothered.
Get your mind out.
Nick's getting
gutter
all
people.
perked up watching the Boston Streakers here. Holy
No, but
moly.
like you got the Bregmans, you got the Tanner Scotts. I'm not big on Arenado, but that would at least get me to give them a look and be like, okay. And then you got was it Cotello that put out the report that they've been telling
Cotillo?
middle.
It's not tortilla. It's Cotillo. Cotillo.
I said
Cotillo.
Cotillo.
Cotilla.
But he put out the report, was it today or yesterday, that they've told middle and lower end free agents that they're prioritizing big money targets right now. So if, again, ownership doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt until they do something. Absolutely. But that at least makes me look at it and be like, okay, there is still another ball to drop here, just like Aaron Judge in the World Series. But there is another thing to come from this. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know by the next time we do a Red Sox episode if it will be there, but I think another move is coming down the pike.
So
Yeah.
let me throw it to you real quick, because in an episode that really not a whole lot of substance has really happened since the last time we talked Red Sox, but in an episode in which we talked about the Boston Streakers and Nick getting boners based off of free agents, how are you feeling, Fink?
I mean, definitely not as good as Nick. I will say that. But optimistic, I think, is the right word. I think I would say there's a path to being successful, a path to being where you want to be back to. I think we have talked to maybe not a path, actually, Nate. I think it's, what is the word? A blueprint. I think there's a blueprint. I think
Makes
there
sense
is
to
a
me.
blueprint. Yeah, but I mean, I think the blueprint, it has all the right ingredients or whatever goes on the blueprint. We obviously haven't figured that out yet because we're still not spending all the money. And then another thing I wanted to talk about real quick in my final thoughts is Hunter Dobbins up to 99.7 this offseason, one of their better pitching prospects in the pipeline. I think he's number 6 on our prospect list. Keep an eye out for Hunter Dobbins. And finally, JoJo, man, sorry about it, but that's all from me.
Yeah, I think that a good call out there on Hunter Dobbins. Obviously, he was protected on the 40-man roster for the Rule 5 draft just about a month ago. And so that's definitely a name to watch when you're talking about depth arms of Richard Fitz and Zach Penrod. And I think Hunter Dobbins definitely falls into that bucket now of Quinn Priester's another one. But I definitely think he falls into that 40-man September call-up type of arm that, 99 plays. And so it'll be really interesting to see how they utilize that arm and as he continues to develop, whether it's as a starter or as a reliever. But my final thoughts are, I think that we're getting a little bit more comfortable, particularly talking about Nick's privates. And, hey, that's just what we're just giving the people what they want to hear. So if you've made it this far in the episode, I appreciate it. We know that Mama Walsh is listening, so she's probably busting a gut listening to us at this point. But thank you all for joining. Again, go ahead and rate us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, wherever you are listening to this podcast. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter at Boston Banner BP. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Boston Banner Blueprint. I think that's all the socials, but that's all the time and all the words and energy that we have for you today. So until next time, peace out.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.